So last weekend I was at the lake cabin with my friends and we had this fun little challenge of hand wrestling, which is kind of like arm wrestling, but instead of sitting down, you do it standing. And your goal is to get your opponent's foot come off the ground. So basically, if you can keep both your feet firmly on the ground and your opponent has to lift just one of his feet, then he loses and you win. It's a really fun game, but the problem is that I lost to everybody. And in the beginning, there's this guy in our friend group who is physically weakest, clearly and by far, because he hasn't been going to the gym that much in his life. Recently, he started to go to the gym, etc., and he lost a lot of weight, and we were all very proud of him for that. But the reason why he lost in the beginning was because he's physically the weakest. But during that game of ours, he actually evolved. He learned from each match, apparently. And then at the end of it, we decided, me and him, to try one more time because he was curious if he could now beat me. And he did. And me basically losing to everybody in my friend group, it brought me back to my childhood because when I was a kid, I used to think I'm a loser. And the definition of loser is interesting. I would love to hear your comments, what you think is a loser. For me these days, a loser is only somebody who tries to bring other people down. That's it. I don't think anyone is a loser if they are weak or if they are not as smart as everybody else. I think losers are people who want to bring others down to feel better about themselves. That's a true loser to me. For example, bullies are losers. But when I was a kid, I didn't think that way. When I was a kid, I thought because I'm weak, because I'm not smart, I'm not talented, I am a loser. And I think maybe it's because I was a shy kid. And in addition to being a shy kid, the way I was raised by my parents, I think kind of made things worse. So I was more afraid of people because of that. And don't get me wrong, my parents were not abusive or anything like that. But the way they kind of shut me down when I was doing something they didn't want me to do, I think that can have an effect on the child. And they kind of learn to not express themselves properly. So maybe that's something that happened to me. And another thing for sure that affected me was the fact that my cousin used to bully me. And we did not see each other more than maybe 2 times a year. So it wasn't constant. And she was actually a very dear friend to me. She was one of the closest people to me when I was like 13 years old or something. Yet at the same time, she had this habit of bullying me. And that left a mark for sure for a long time. It took me a long time to forgive her and to move on from that. But I think that also affected me. So here I was this kid who was shy as hell, afraid of everything. I was so afraid of interactions with people, so afraid of doing anything in front of people also. And I was also physically weak. I remember when my friends and I, myself, we laughed about how weak I was. I couldn't do any pull-ups, I couldn't do push-ups. I was pathetic. And at that point in my life, I had this weird mentality of like, yeah, I'm so weak, it's funny, ha ha ha, which I can't understand anymore, obviously, because I would never do that to myself anymore. I would never laugh at myself for being weak. If I feel I'm weak, I hit the gym. That's what I've been doing my whole life ever since. But all in all, I had no confidence, I had no self-esteem, I was not talented, I was not good at sports, I had poor coordination, I was weak. And also my style was terrible because once again, I wish there was somebody in my life who guided me, who told me that, hey, you could wear this thing or cut your hair like this and you would be a lot more cool. You could actually be cool. A lot of teenage kids, they could actually be pretty cool, but they don't have it in them and nobody's guiding them. And also I sucked at maths. I had a terrible head for maths. I'm not that smart. And I think it's important for me to acknowledge that, even though I became a programmer later on. And I'm not afraid of doing things that are difficult. That's something I've learned. Do not be afraid of difficult things, even if you're not talented. But it was one more thing that made me feel like there's nothing good about me at that point in my life. And even today, when we go to the lake cabin and we play board games, I'm usually in the last two. I'm not always the last, and that's what's important to me, but I never get to the top one. Sometimes I get to the top two, so I'm the second one or the third one or whatever, but I almost never win the board games because I have some friends who are really f***ing smart. And that's okay, that's good. It's good. It's a challenge and it's good for the brain to go through those challenges. But it doesn't help with remembering where I came from, with remembering how pathetic I felt when I was a kid. And, it makes me a little bit emotional when I think about what I was like when I was a kid, because I could have been so much more. I could have been confident if I knew that you don't have to be special. You don't have to be that good at things to feel confident. It's fine. It's okay. You can be less smart than somebody else. You can be physically worse off than somebody else, and it doesn't make you a bad person. And that's all that matters. You just gotta be a good person to other people. That's what matters. And then it can easily become your identity. I was thankfully somehow able to get rid of that identity quite early on. After all, I was, I believe, 16 years old when I found new friends. And then I saw this girl in high school, and I just decided I want to make her my girlfriend, basically. I remember it was that simple to me. I saw her in the school and I just decided, yep, I want to approach her no matter what, and I want to get into a relationship with her no matter what. It's so weird to think in hindsight because, as I said, I was shy. I was terrified. I approached her online, actually. I sent her a message online because I was somehow able to find her contact information. So it was kind of creepy if you think about it. But I couldn't approach her in real life because I was too shy. But in any case, I did end up getting in a relationship with her, for better and for worse. But the better part of that was that my confidence went up like a goddamn rocket, because I was the first person in my friend group to get a girlfriend. And I felt I had a beautiful girlfriend. So it's just like that, I gained tons of confidence. It's really quite remarkable in hindsight, as I said, because it's kind of unlikely for that to happen. But then again, I was never ugly. I was never that bad. It was just in my head and in my mind that I was some kind of a loser, but that was not the truth. And also, I had been going to the gym for maybe 2 or 3 years at that point when I was 16. And I started to see that in my body. I started to actually lose some fat and gain some muscle. And that contributed to having better confidence. And basically, that's all it took for me. Getting to the gym to see the difference in the mirror, and then getting a girlfriend. Those were the two things I needed as a teenager to boost my confidence to the level where it never really came down. I've always been, ever since, rather confident. Even though I have seen how I'm not that smart. I have seen how I am nothing special when it comes to physical capabilities. And even though I had the porn addiction problem also, and I was single for 9 years because I didn't approach people, because I still was, well, shy, if you will, but I think it's a little bit deeper. It's it's more than just being shy. It's about, people who are afraid to approach other people. There's something you need to work on internally for sure. But in any case, I wanted to share this story with you because, well, I hope somebody finds this who has struggled with similar things. But if not, then at least I hope somebody finds this interesting or relatable. But best case scenario is somebody finds this who needs to hear this. And I would just love to tell, if I ever have children, and I know I have a nephew and a niece, so I would love to tell a young kid who struggles that they are not pathetic, that they are not losers, even if they feel like it, even if life feels overwhelming. They can make a change, and all they have to do is to be a good person. They don't need to be better than everybody else. And even a kid who is scared of everything, who is shy, they can become somebody else. They can become confident, and they can learn to approach people later in life. So it's such a brutal phase in our lives, isn't it? Being a kid and being a teenager. We have so much peer pressure, and we have all these stupid thoughts in our heads that we are some kind of losers, when we should just go on with our lives and grow up and let ourselves feel those emotions, obviously. But also, you do not need to be talented. You do not need to be special. You don't need to be impressive. Just be a decent person. Be kind to others and do what you can. Go to the gym, go running, try to develop a skill. Even, I became a goddamn programmer even though I'm not smart. It was possible, it was doable. So just get after it and believe in yourself, because nobody is, no one's better. I know talented people, they're so cool. We all look up to talented people, but at the end of the day, ordinary people are just fine. You don't have to be special. Anyway, if you enjoyed this video, please leave a like because the algorithm loves it, and consider subscribing if you want to hear more stories like this. And thank you for watching. I appreciate your time. I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.